And they came to us and said, hey, we have great closers, we have great sellers, we have great account executives. We just need more at bats. And the marketing leads are great, but the problem is no one knows really who we are. And we need to obviously have a huge push in marketing to get those leads excited. And to your point, 80% of the account executive, 80% of their day was prospecting.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Confessions of a B2B Entrepreneur. Today we have a big episode. We have Gabe Lullo, who's the CEO of Lullo. Now, Lullo is a big SDR company. And so I wanted to learn more about the role of the SDR, what they do, where they should belong. So if any B2B entrepreneurs watching and need to scale their outbound, the first part of this episode is going to be great for you because we cover that. The second is Gabe's journey to the CEO of the business. He didn't actually start initially as the CEO. He didn't found the company. And so his journey through that company, I think is awesome. And then we finally touched on their employee content social strategy, which I think is quite unique. So let's jump into this discussion now. This episode is sponsored by MailTrap, an email delivery platform designed for product companies. Go for high deliverability, growth-focused features, and industry-best analytics. Get 20% off all plans with our promo code B2B Entrepreneurs, all capitals B2B Entrepreneur. Check the details in the description below. Gabe, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tom. You know, I'm a huge fan of yours, so thanks so much for having me, and I'm excited to get into it.
We're going to talk about two of my favorite topics, sales, specifically SDRs, which maybe FDI is my favorite part of sales, but we'll get to that. And then business growth, leadership. So let's kick off with sales because I understand that you have a lot of experience with SDRs.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Let's intro the company. Lullo essentially books calls for other businesses through the use of technically an SDR, right?
That's right. Yeah. So we're an SDR as a service, if you will, right? Have an agency model. We're one of the largest firms in the space. So we're proud to say that. And we've been doing it for 16 years. You know, we started off more in the full cycle sales, training and staffing side of the sales world. And then it morphed about 10, 11 years ago into a full SDR model. So we run a few different programs, but long story short, yes, companies come to us. And when we on brand white label an SDR function fully supported for their full cycle sales teams or founders who need more leads on their calendar.
And do you charge per, do they pay for the SDR or do they pay per meeting?
Yeah, we don't do a pay per meeting program for new clients. We do get into more of a hybrid structure when we have more long-term clients. We have predictable results. We understand the market. They understand our abilities. We had benchmark numbers. So we run a pilot where it's a flat fee and it's based on as low as a fractional SDR all the way to a multi-SDR headcount team. And then we go into more of hybrid models for more long-term engagements with our clients because we have that data to support it.
Got it. So let's educate the audience about the SDR. So my understanding is that they were brought into a sales process because the salesperson was almost split into two, and maybe even three now sales engineers, but let's just do it two. So we have the account executive who is the closer, and then we have the SDR who's the person who maybe has less experience and is responsible for booking that meeting for the account executive. That's roughly correct, and maybe over the last 10 or 20 years that happened, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm a car guy. I like motorcycles. I like fast things. So my analogy is always the assembly line. You know, you can look at a funnel, but I like assembly lines. And 10, 12 years ago, it was two people in the assembly line, marketing, sales, and then of course, client success as it moves over into a closed deal. But now there's a lot more steps in that assembly line. And the sales development function literally sits in between sales and marketing. And you have to treat it like its own function, not just, oh, it's kind of marketing, it's kind of sales. It really is its own function or it won't work effectively. And so about 10, 12 years ago, right when we were actually getting involved in this space is when the SDR role really was invented. You know, we brought in an amazing client called ZoomInfo in its infancy. We were their first SDR team and founding SDR team. And they came to us and said, hey, we have great closers. We have great sellers. We have great account executives. We just need more at bats. And the marketing leads are great, but the problem is no one knows really who we are. And we need to obviously have a huge push in marketing to get those leads excited. And to your point, 80% of the account executives, or 80% of their day was prospecting. and we're paying them high incomes. We're asking the responsibility of them to close deals, send proposals, negotiate contracts, and generate revenue. But 70 to 80% of their day is actually outbound prospecting. That doesn't make sense. So the SDR role is exactly that: exclusive prospecting to prepare those sellers to do what they're great at, which is present, close deals, and generate revenue.
So if they don't sit in marketing or sales, who does like the SDR manager report into?
Yeah, so I think an SDR manager should report directly into both the CEO and the VP of sales or CRO.
CEO.
Yeah, of course. So I have a lot of founder-led sales companies, and we report directly into the CEO for those smaller companies. And then secondarily, as our bigger teams, we kind of have it split. We have marketing and sales kind of 50-50 right now. It used to be just sales. Very little was it ever in the marketing space, but that is becoming more and more prevalent, where CMOs, VPs of marketing are owning or at least very involved in the sales development function, which I think they should be. And we're seeing that now come through fruition for sure.
What are your thoughts on the SDR potentially being able to be automated? Do you think that's realistic?
If you're only emailing, we're almost there, right? If you're just coming in and setting up sequences on Outreach or SalesLoft or Instantly or Smart Leads these days, I mean, frankly, that is going to be replaced with AI if it's not already. If you're just doing that, then frankly, your job is on the expiration date for sure. But if you're leveling up your ability to have high level conversations and phone calls, to go ahead and be, very savvy in business acumen and product knowledge and standing out and being, getting the attention you need, that's where the SDR is shining right now. I believe the SDR function is not just an entry level role where someone graduates college or wants to get away from bartending and getting into sales. Like, yes, it's a gateway to get into sales, but it's not just an entry level role these days. You need to level up your skill set more than ever before.
I've worked with a few SDRs, and the ones that I saw get really great results had I just describe it as great hustle. They would be like emailing on LinkedIn, they'd be posting on LinkedIn, they'd be calling, and so that it's almost like an attitude.
We call it grit, right? Hustle, work ethic, do hard things, right? It's just grit. If you have that, then you are absolutely on the track to becoming very successful. And it's challenging, right? So you don't see that in a resume. It doesn't say, hey, my grit at GPA is 4.0. Like, you don't know that. So there's hints of it. There's thoughts of it there. There's possibilities and ideas about it on a resume, but you have to really meet the people to figure that out and ask the right questions and give them the track to run on to truly test it out as well. But someone with grit and hustle, to your point, is significantly more valuable to me than someone with vast knowledge or an amazing amount of, let's call it, experience or background.
Should every SDR have a social presence?
Yes. So I wouldn't have said that 3-4 years ago, but right now, in my opinion, it's calls and content. That's the two words that are resonating in the market. It's harder than ever before to get attention. I looked at my inbox this morning, and I actually am going to write a post on it in a few days because it's just crazy the amount of emails that I'm getting, and we have filters on it, right? So it's just insane. And so I think an SDR needs to be a beacon on social. A lot of SDRs are young. There are people who understand social really well. I know of SDRs that had 60, 70, 80,000 followers on LinkedIn, and a lot of their business is coming from that. And I think it's a great thing. We advise it to our SDRs to do that. And absolutely is something that for sure is going to help your credibility and trust level when you make that call. Now, just sitting there waiting for leads to come in because you're doing social is not the way either. So that's where the calls and content comes in, because it creates social proof and allows you to have those conversations that you can take action on with those calls.
Yeah, if I read like 2 or 3 posts from an SDR and then I see them calling me or emailing me, like the conversion or the response rate is going to be like, I don't know, half the time.
Absolutely.
On that note, Gabe, do you pick up cold calls?
I do. I actually just had an interview yesterday with somebody who cold called me a week ago.
To try and work it, Elliot.
I looked at them to work here. I had a great conversation. I picked up the phone. And what's interesting with me is that if they are good, because this is all that we do, I'm going to say, hey, great job. Give them some pointers. If there's no interest, if there's no relevancy in your product, it's not something we need, I'm going to give them as many pointers as I can and hopefully they take it. But the really good ones, I will absolutely ask them, hey, listen, I don't want to embarrass you in any way. Maybe this call's being recorded, but if you're open to an interview, I would absolutely interview you. And I just finished an interview with someone who did that to me last week.
You have a background in sales, right?
Yes.
Have you been an SDR before?
I was an SDR here when I started.
I didn't know that because according to your LinkedIn, it says like you're head of director of business or something.
Yeah, so interesting. So I started as an SDR for 90 days and then moved into more of the ops and people side of it. So my background is I had a recruiting and training company, my own, for 10 years. And I was on the road a lot. So I became a single dad and I needed to be home. So I found this company that was an inside sales company, and that's LU. And so I had sat down with the owners. They were very, very small, 10, 11 employees. And I said, listen, I'm a recruiter. I'm a sales trainer. I'd love to build a big team with you here and take this to the next level. He's like, that sounds great, but you need to be an SDR first. And literally that was my offer. So I started here as an SDR, made a big impact in a quick period of time, and then moved my way up. So I was an SDR day one.
That's like legendary recruiting, isn't it? Because everything else you do, we'll get into the leadership stuff in a minute, must be filtered through the lens of you actually understanding what the role is for the majority of your team.
Yeah, I mean, we're so in love with the role that almost every single person in almost every single division within our company was an SDR, either here or at another company in the beginning stages of their career. Our chief operating officer was an SDR. Our head of data was an SDR. Our recruiters were former SDRs. All of our managers, all of our campaign directors, our client campaign directors, they live, breathe, and eat and sleep the role and started in that role and move upward. Because it's not just a role to become an AE. Everyone thinks SDR, AE, done. No, there's a lot of opportunity to start into other divisions and other opportunities. There's a lot of ops people, right, who are amazing at ops, but they started off as an SDR and they know how to enable an SDR because they were one. So it's almost every single person, except for our head of finance. She didn't need to be one. But other than that, it's pretty much everybody.
Not planning on putting her on a secondment into the SDR function.
It's an internal joke for sure. It would be funny to see her do that. But she loves the role, and some of her team actually is on it from the HR side of things.
So a Fame, we have never cracked outbound. We've added, 300 clients over our lifetime. And I think 5 maybe have come from outbound. What do you think we're doing wrong?
Well, I need to know what you're doing first. It's interesting because 90% of the companies that come to us is because it's broken. They tried it. It's not working. The rest is they haven't done anything yet and they know they need to do it. They come to us and we start from scratch. But yeah, I think it's a matter of understanding, like, who are you calling? That's the first thing is, people have to really understand their buyer. We always talk about it all over LinkedIn as ICP, but it really is that important. And then enablement. A lot of people, start an SDR team, they hire 1 or 2 people and they say, here's a list, go get them kids, see you next month. Hopefully you do well. Like that's their support. And the biggest piece why SDRs fail or why there's a high churn in the role overall is because they don't have the enablement and they don't have the support. And it's okay and understandable because it's really expensive to support an SDR well. And it's very hard to do it at a very small size team. It's much easier to do it at scale. And so when you do it, when you look at it, you have to make sure, are they having all the best things to support them, including culture, including training, including environment, including motivation, including compensation, in addition to just tech and data. Those are the things that really need to be supported. And I think is what cracks the code when doing it well.
Yeah. So just hiring one person, not really understanding the culture and understanding the role and only having them doing email is not the right way to go.
No, the exact opposite.
There we go. Okay. Good learning. Let's switch. So I feel like we've covered the SDR. I want to switch, and we actually started to talk about this, like your role in the business. And it's so interesting to hear that you started off with an SDR. It's epic. You moved into ops, and then you had this role of like head of business. That's what I think it says on LinkedIn. And what does that mean?
Yeah. So at first, doing the recruiting and the people side of it, finding the SDR, training the SDR, building the SDR's, skill set was a huge piece of it. And then I managed, our entire sales from a people perspective, and then moved into actually selling and co-selling with our founder, our offering, and actually building out the playbooks and then building out the actual structure and the architecture of the actual playbook and the go-to-market strategy that we put together, and then selling that. And then I actually left the company. So I actually left to go work at 2 software companies to be the GM of those 2 brands. And I learned a lot about technology, managing developers. I learned a lot about, obviously, finance. I have a finance degree, but never really put it to work. So understanding profit and loss statements and building out forecasts and doing more the financial piece of the business. And then was asked to come back by the founder. He wanted to retire, and he reached out to me and asked me to come back and be CEO. And so that's kind of how the story happened.
Essentially, you've done every role in Ali, but not every role, but like the majority of the roles. It makes total sense why you can make it work as a CEO. Okay, so you come back in, and now there's two founders that you mentioned, and they're not operational.
They're not. No,
Got it. So you're in charge.
I am. Yes.
I assume maybe they still have ownership, so you kind of still have to report to the board.
Yeah, exactly. They're advisors. They're obviously still owners. And so they absolutely provide me that advising role. Hey, did we do this before? Right? Have you thought about this idea before? Is this a bad idea or am I on the right track? Or, hey, this is what we're doing. It's not really hitting the mark. Do you have any ideas on this? And that's really what I lean on them for. And it's been amazing relationship to do it that way for sure.
And how would you say that you split your time in the CEO role at the moment, or in like an average day at the moment between, I don't know, sales, marketing, etc.?
So every single morning at 9:30, I have an operations meeting with my team. So I'm very involved in the day-to-day of what's going on. And it's a punchy, fast meeting. And that's one big thing that I learned from running a software development team is that agile daily stand-up methodology. And I brought that into our operations team. So I'm listening, okay, what's going on with new business? What's going on with recruitment? What's going on with branding? What's going on with our clients? And what we hear that from our daily report. And it's got very quick, very punchy. And I'm involved in providing advice because like you said, I've done most of the roles for, so I can tell them, hey, here's what I would do. Here's what I would do and run it from there. And then at the end of the day, I'm doing a lot of content and I'm meeting with prospective clients with my sales team. So I'm the second or third conversation in our sales process.
For every new deal, you'll get involved.
Yeah, at the end, it's about a $300,000 to $400,000 annual contract value on average. So these are big deals, and I would get involved towards the end of the sales cycle for sure. And I'm generating, creating a lot of content, doing podcasts like this, really getting more of like a founder-led marketing role out for sure. And that's a majority of what I'm doing on the day to day.
Yeah, I think your LinkedIn presence and your and your own podcast that we haven't mentioned, and your podcast guesting is like pretty prolific. How long have you been working on this like content flywheel, and have you been able to see like direct ROI?
Yes and yes. So it's about 3.5 years since I've come back and taken over as CEO. So in the first 6 months, actually, I was working underneath our CEO as COO, really, and just having him sunset. And then at the 3-year mark, 3 years ago, that's when I took over. And that's when we started content 3 years ago. We knew we were going to do it. I knew we had to make a big splash and make a big impact. And we can't be saying, hey, to our clients, hey, content and calls is what you should be doing if we're not doing it ourselves. So, and it started with me, and I was very apprehensive to get on a video to do anything. But we worked with a small agency. We obviously hired you guys in what you do. And we also started to double down on being a guest. We had no intention of doing our own. It was just be a guest. And I learned so much from doing that. We've done over 80 to 85 podcasts in the last 3 years as a guest. And that was where I learned everything because I didn't want to take away from what everyone was doing already. So that's what inspired us to get to do it ourselves. But we built a team around it. So we have amazing partners like you, but also we built some internal teams to allow us to do it at scale. And right now we're producing as a team 95 organic posts a month. And that's across our employees. We don't have content creators that make money to do content here. These are all our normal employees across all of our divisions. We've hand selected 1 or 2 of them across the divisions. And I say, this is what I want you guys to do, guys. I want you to just, what you would talk about to your friends and family member at the dinner table at the end of the day. Hey, how was your day at work, honey? Well, here's what I did. That is your video diary. And let's have you do that on camera, and then we'll put content around it. And that's what we've been doing.
Let's dig into that. So I guess the idea there is that there's obviously value in the information that these team members have in their heads. And so if we can capture that and then invest some money in formatting the content and then give that back to them to post, he's ultimately going to build their own personal brands, which is great for them, but also should get a bit of attention for Alley as well.
Yeah. So we actually aggregated this. So we calculated everyone's follower count 3 years ago, including mine. I was, by the way, under 2,000. We calculated everyone's follower count across the entire company, including SDRs. And we were about 35,000 followers in total. So that's crickets if you look at a big team like we have. Now we just eclipsed over 1 million followers in 3 years. I've eclipsed over 20,000 followers, which I know is not even close, you're 10 times me. But I think a great story is Lexi, our partnerships manager. She started with 400 followers 9 months ago and now have 8,000, right? So we're obviously on the right track. But here's my favorite one. We actually calculate every single month how many new followers our entire team gets. Now, of course, there's going to be some cross-pollination there because we can't really see if it's like the same person they're following. It doesn't matter. How many followers did our entire team get in the month? And we're eclipsing right now 50,000 a month across all of our employees' profiles. And so we calculate all of that and it's making a big splash. You asked me a question earlier about are we seeing ROI on it? 40% of our new business last year came from either content directly or through partnerships of ours that came from content directly. And so it has allowed us to really double the size of our company almost in just content creation alone.
That is such a cool metric to track. Total followers for all team members.
We also give out incentives. So we're like, why are we doing this? So we actually, whoever gets the most amount of followers every single month gets incentives, and we do gifts. So big screen TVs, cool cameras to do great content, new monitors, like anything and it's really, we have a whole buffet. We have a cool client that we actually is executive tailor. So they work with executives and they make clothes. He made my shirt, but at the end of the day, he's a client of ours. And he's like, hey, I want to be involved in this because he does a lot of content too. So you get a custom shirt, you know what I mean? If you want as one of your gifts. So we're giving away, it's fun. And it also allows people to create content with those gifts, is a way to even generate more for them. So it is all cyclical.
It's completely opposite to, I think, how most people do employee branding or employee content, where they like create some press release and then try and force their employees to share it. They like hit the repost button.
Yeah, exactly. Like, listen, no one wants to see that, right? And so, yeah, it's absolutely important. I think it was Scott Leese that said it. He's like, if you're interviewing somebody and everything is apples to apples, right? If you look at their background, their skill set, their resume, complete apples to apples, but one has 20,000 followers and one has 200, who do you hire? And so that we look at it. Now, here's what's interesting. We don't force people to write content. We don't say, hey, you have to write. That's a lot of marketing companies do that. And that's why I think people repel when doing those types of things. We say, we want you to be your own brand. We want to encourage you. Don't even mention our company. Just talk about the industry. Talk about what you're doing every day. And what's interesting is if they do leave us, which we do have what we call Alley-Oop alumni, because you can't be an AE at Alley-Oop, right? We only have a handful of AEs. If you want to be an SDR at AE, you have to go work at one of our clients or a new company. So we have this exit strategy for our employees. But here's what's unique. Now they have an SDR has 20,000 followers and they're leaving our company. They're going to be able to bring that with them and then use that for their new opportunity as whatever they're moving into. So it's been even more exciting now that we see that graduation start to happen. And then people are able to take their brand and move it with them. It's awesome.
Just a commercial question. In the agreement you have with your clients, if the SDR goes, let's say, becomes an AE at the client, I assume that you get paid for that.
Yeah, we have a full staffing model within all of our agreements. So when someone engages with us, they know, and so does the SDRs know that they can be hired and transfer from us to them. The head of sales development at ZoomInfo for years started here. The head of sales development at Gong started here. The head of sales development at Orem started here, all as SDRs. And now they are running those departments at those companies. So we do it all the time. Every single month, we have people leave us. It's bittersweet, of course, but it allows them to grow their career. And then it doesn't allow us to be battling with clients who are trying to poach our team, right? So it gives us an opportunity to have a synergistic and collaborative long-term relationship with our clients.
Makes sense. Back to social stuff. I think you shared before that you have a URL on your site where you present your influencers and team members. Can you read it out and then also put in the show notes so people can check it out?
Yeah, on our website, we have our content creators are there in profile. Their LinkedIn profiles are on there. Just go to alleyup.io/content. Any podcast that we produce goes there, whether it's guest or internal. And our content creators who are posting consistently on a weekly basis also have their profiles there.
Yeah, it's awesome. Awesome program. Was that your idea or someone in marketing?
No, that's my idea.
Oh, you're taking credit.
This has definitely been my baby, if you will. I employ much smarter people than me in most of our divisions, and I kind of get out of their way. But this has been something that I absolutely have been taking significant ownership over. But now we're in the transitional period of delegating that out. So we're really excited about it's kind of had a life of its own at this point. The processes are in place. We have great partnerships that are in place with our vendors, and it's really becoming off my table here in the next 6 months.
What is coming down the pipeline that's exciting you at the moment with respect to the business?
Yeah, so we launched some new programs that is allowing some large enterprises to come our way. There's a big need, for teams who don't want to hire, don't want to retrain, don't want to be worried about churn when it comes to their existing SDR team. So we launched something called Plug and Play, which has been attracting massive brands. Peloton, Ingram Micro, SoFi just closed the deal a few weeks ago to really build out their SDR teams in a much more ingrained offering than if we just did everything for them. So we launched that and it's been dramatic success and it's really been helping us scale as well. And so that's what we're really excited about and doubling down on that opportunity.
And so what's the difference between that to what you would normally do? Are you like basically giving them the SDR and then they're managing the SDR, or how's it?
Yeah, absolutely. So instead of just us sending over leads and setting up appointments and it's our dialer, our data, our tools, our manager, it's much more of a collaborative partnership where we're not supplying the CRM or the dialer or the email platform, but we do supply training, benefits, payroll, management, accountability, goal setting, commissions. So it really is much more of a collaborative partnership where we're in their systems running for their teams. And again, they have the ability to hire. So it's a try before you buy scenario. And it's also a stopgap and a scalability gap that a lot of companies are dealing with right now when it comes to sourcing SDRs. And we like it says, plug and play. We're able to plug into their infrastructure and run our plays.
Love it. So we're going to link to the content page. We're going to obviously link to Alley-oop, the website, your LinkedIn, your podcast, which is called, just remind the audience.
It's Do Hard Things, where we interview people who didn't go to Harvard or, didn't know anything about sales. And then all of a sudden they be able to push through that difficulty of selling and getting to the top of their game.
Epic. Anything else we should mention or link to?
No, I mean, that's us. That's everything out there. You'll be able to access my team, people who are driving the engine right now through that content page. We just started season 2 on our podcast. And of course, I post every day and super accessible on LinkedIn. So if you ever need to connect with me or Alley-oop, those are all the sites.
Love that, Gabe. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Hal.
Okay, what do we think about that? I love the empowerment of the team to share on social, and that metric of tracking total followers over all team members, I think is a really, really good and important metric to track. Let's give a quick shout out to Gabe, obviously, for coming on the show. A quick shout out to Fame for producing this episode. If you like a show like this, go to fame.so and request a proposal. And of course, thanks to you for listening.